In this video, I'm going to fully explain this FNaF Iceberg in hopefully less than 2 hours. The voiceover and editing are going to be a little bit sloppy because this video would take about a year if I didn't cut some corners. Also, thanks to Natterjohn on Reddit for posting this iceberg to the FNaF subreddit and for helping me out with some of the topics in this video. But for all of these iceberg entries to make sense, I'll need to kind of explain the entire FNaF lore, so here we go. The first event in the timeline is the opening of Fredbear's Family Diner, owned by Henry Emily and William Afton. It most likely opened in the late 70s or very early 80s. Nothing much happened until 1983, when William's youngest son, allegedly named Evan, was killed, the killers being Michael Afton, William's other son, and some of his friends. But the killing was an accident. Evan was shoved into the mouth of an animatronic named Fredbear as some sort of joke, which, you know, probably a little far on that one. A lot of people use this fact to say that Springlocks killed Evan, which does not make sense because no one was in the suit, so the Springlocks would have been unwound anyway. Oh wait, what are Springlocks? Basically, the type of animatronic that Fredbear was called a Springlock suit, and a Springlock suit is essentially a suit which has Springlocks in it, and Springlocks hold back all of the animatronic parts, which allows a suit to be worn either as a animatronic or as a suit. But the thing is, they can be snapped by moisture exposure, which, again, doesn't matter here, but whatever. Evan dies and the Springlock suits are discontinued, and Fredbear's Family Diner closes down. However, one of the suits, creatively named Spring Bonnie, is kept in a new location named Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, or the FNaF 2 location, opened and closed in 1987. When it's discovered that William Afton used the Spring Bonnie suit to lure 5 children into the back rooms and killed 1 previously. The one killed outside being Charlotte Emily, the daughter of Henry Emily. Additionally, as the restaurant closed, there was an adult man, a worker, who was killed by the animatronic Mangle for no apparent reason. And Charlotte Emily would go on to haunt the Marionette, also known as the Puppet, also known as arguably one of the most important characters in the entire series. And at this point, William Afton is somehow not in jail, but the location still closes. However, the FNaF 1 location, opened in the mid-80s, is still open, and that's where the bodies go. But William keeps the Spring Bonnie suit in the abandoned FNaF 2 location, and in the early 90s, Michael Afton would begin working at the FNaF 1 location in search of William. Presumably because Michael knew that William was a murderer, but shortly after this, William would try to free the souls of the children he killed by disassembling the animatronics, but once he freed them, they chased him into the Freddy's back room, and in that back room, he retreats to the Spring Bonnie suit. The issue with this is that the Spring Bonnie suit is a Springlock suit, and it was raining above an abandoned building, and William begins laughing, and then William didn't die, though. Due to his constant murder of children, as well as his goated immortality genetics, he survived. But he laid there in agony for 30 years. After this point, Michael explores the sister location, in search of his sister and William. However, Circus Baby, who is haunted by Elizabeth, wants to kill Michael so that he can join her. Elizabeth lures Michael into the scooping room and scoops out all of his organs. And Ennard, an amalgamation of Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, Ballora, and Circus Baby, inhabits his body. However, after Michael's corpse rots, Ennard leaves, and Michael just vomits up this robot goop. This is still in the early to mid-90s, and Michael would do very little for the next 25 years, until the year of our Lord, 2023, when Fazbear Entertainment is still somehow in business, and makes a haunted house-like establishment called Fazbear Frights, based on the quote-unquote hoaxes about the Freddy's restaurants. Michael then goes to this establishment looking for William, but this time he finds him. The company making Fazbear Frights decided to search abandoned Freddy's restaurants in search of vintage Freddy's artifacts, like different scrapped animatronic parts and the like. But in the back room, they find William in the form of Springtrap, a rotting, moldy corpse covered in rot and somehow he doesn't look or smell like a corpse to them. So they take him to Fazbear Frights, and Michael gets to burn the building to the ground and finally kill William. But instead, William lives, and then Michael goes to Henry, William's former business partner, and makes an offer. Henry will open a new Freddy's location in which he will capture Charlotte in the form of the puppet in Lefty, William in the form of Scrap Trap, and Baby in the form of Scrap Baby. And then they burn the place to the ground, finally ending everything. Henry starts the fire and gives the speech, and William is sent to his personal hell. All of his creations now torment him for eternity, and this is what Ultimate Custom Night is. And now the story is over. There was never another game after this, unless you're wrong. There's probably some stuff I got wrong here, because it's basically a footnote, so everything makes sense here, but, you know, I tried my hardest. Alright, now we can do the iceberg thing, starting with the sky above the iceberg. Toreador March, also known as Toreador Song, is a classical piece composed by, forgive my pronunciation, Georges Bizet, and it plays at 104 beats per minute and has a 4/4 time signature. It's also the song played by Freddy Fazbear when the power goes off. Side note, it's also played in G flat in FNaF, and the original is in A flat minor. I just thought it was interesting. Dawko is a British FNaF YouTuber, and he was quite important to the game becoming as massive as it is. He was also the second person to finish 50-20 mode in Ultimate Custom Night. Here's that clip. The kitchen camera, or camera 6, is a camera in FNaF 1 that is fully blacked out and out of service. You can still select it, however, and if Chica is in there, you hear pots and pans, and if Freddy is in there, you hear the Toreador March. There are a lot of fan theories and hoaxes about how Golden Freddy or the purple guy or insert vaguely relevant FNaF character lives in the kitchen, but I don't think any of them are true. Endo-02 is an endoskeleton in FNaF 2. Judging by the appearance, he appears to be an endoskeleton of Mangle in a better condition. He has 4 fingers on each hand and 3 toes on each foot, although he has a different eye color, and he can appear in the prize corner and crawling through the vents. However, he can't jump scare you, so at worst he does nothing, and at best he blocks other animatronics from entering the vents, which is mildly helpful. MatPat is the creator of the channel Game Theory, and he's made about 60 FNaF theories, and it seems like about 2 of them have been right. You probably already know who he is, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. DD is a variant of Balloon Boy who appears in Ultimate Custom Night and summons a random character who hasn't been previously enabled. She and XOR are the only ways to get secret characters, except Fredbear, who will be explained later, and XOR is a version of DD that appears exclusively on 50-20 mode and summons every secret character at once, except Fredbear. XOR is also black and gray, and it plays DD's song, but reversed, distorted, and sped up. Ian and Braden Cawthon are Scott Cawthon's children, who I would rather not talk about too much, as they are real human children with, like, lives and all, and just because their dad is famous for video game, they shouldn't have to be thrust into the internet. RWQFSFASXC, better known as just RWQ or Shadow Bonnie, is a black and white version of Shadow Bonnie that appears in your office with 1 in a million odds every night. He also appears in FNaF 3, FNaF World, and Ultimate Custom Night as a secret character. In FNaF 2, his only mechanic is that if you stare at him long enough, he crashes your game. In Help Wanted, Showtime is a feature where you can see the original FNaF characters performing a song. However, this was cut during late development as Scott said it didn't feel 110% to him. This was his Reddit post regarding it. Hey everyone, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. Showtime and the mysterious secret images, which aren't important for here. Showtime was left out of the game because it didn't feel right. It's not that it was unfinished necessarily, but there may be some bits and pieces floating around of incomplete versions. But there was, in fact, a completed version. I made the call to leave it out, though. It's one of those things that needs to feel 110% to me, and that may or may not ever happen. As of this video being written, the current books are as follows in order of release date and collection. The Silver Eyes, 2015. The Twisted Ones, 2017. The Fourth Closet, 2018. Fazbear Frights. Into the Pit, 2019. Fetch, 2020. 1:35 a.m., 2020. Step Closer, 2020. Bunny Call, 2020. Blackbird, 2020. The Cliffs, 2021. Gumdrop Angel, 2021. The Puppet Carver, 2021. Friendly Face, 2021. And Prankster, 2021. There's only one Fazbear Frights graphic novel, and in Tales from the Police Apex, we have Lally's Game, 2022, Haps, 2022, and Somnophobia, 2022. The original graphic novel collections, we have The Silver Eyes, 2020, The Twisted Ones, 2021, and The Fourth Closet, 2022. The guides, we have The Freddy Files, 2017, The Survival Logbook, 2017, The Security Breach Files, 2022, and The Ultimate Guide, 2022. And those are all of the books. Good God! Shadow Freddy is similar to RWQ in that he appears rarely in FNaF 2, although he's purple and based on Withered Golden Freddy. He appears in parts and services, and there's not much else to him. He crashes your game in a similar way to RWQ, though. It's me is a phrase repeated several times in FNaF 1, and after seeing Golden Freddy in the scenes between nights. It's never fully explained what this means, but I think it's the crying child, also known as Evan, trying to communicate to Michael Afton, who you play as in the first 3 games. And Golden Freddy, or Fredbear, is the animatronic that Michael shoved Evan into, killing him, and Golden Freddy now resides in the FNaF 1 location. I will say it is kind of debated on whether Cassidy inhabits Golden Freddy, or Evan does, or both of them, but for this theory, I think it makes the most sense for Evan to inhabit Golden Freddy. You know who Markiplier is. There used to be a hoax that you could trigger a Golden Freddy jump scare by setting the custom night AI levels to 1, 9, 8, and 7. This was later added by Scott in an update, though, which is... Scott Cawthon is the creator of FNaF, and he did it as a pretty much solo operation, aside from voice actors and the books up until Help Wanted, when he gave a large part of programming and visuals to Seal Wolf Studios. And in 2021, he was exposed for donating to Republican and notably anti-LGBT politicians. And in light of those, he decided to give full creation of FNaF to Steel Wool, although it's not really known whether he has yet. In most of the games, there's an Easter egg where if you click on animatronic noses, they honk. I don't think there's really any importance to this, it's just a cute little touch. In Sister Location, by completing the ice cream minigame and going right instead of left in the Ballora Gallery after sending Baby to the scooping room, you can unlock the private room. In the room, you have to defend yourself from Ennard in a minigame that Postra has made a whole video on, so just go watch that. I'll link it in the description, or somewhere on screen, maybe. Golden Freddy is an Easter egg character from FNaF 1. You can tell he's about to be triggered when the posters in the left hall turn to very FNaF-core crying children. Their jump scare is the same as the normal jump scare sound in FNaF 1, but it's slowed down, and this character is also arguably one of the most important in the series again. The Bite of 87 is introduced by the phone guy in FNaF 2, and the general consensus is that it happened in the FNaF 2 location, and the bite is suspected to have happened to Jeremy Fitzgerald by Mangle. The bite removed his frontal lobe and presumably damaged more of his brain. He would end up living for some time, although he almost definitely died later on from complications of the bite. Leon Riskin recorded and composed all of the music from FNaF World, Sister Location, Pizzeria Simulator, Ultimate Custom Night, and Help Wanted, and part of Security Breach, although he's also done plenty of work outside of FNaF. JJ is a recolor of BB that appears under the desk in FNaF 2 occasionally. She doesn't really do anything, but I did see her in my FNaF 2 video from last year, so that's interesting. The Halloween update for FNaF 4 was released on October 31st, 2015, which was originally going to be the release date of the base game. The update pretty much just reskins Nightmare Foxy, Nightmare Chica, and Nightmare Bonnie to Nightmare Mangle, Jacko Bonnie, and Jacko Chica. It additionally adds the Nightmarian, and I have no idea how it works. The Living Tombstone is a music channel owned by Yoav Lando and Sam Haft. They're responsible, scratch that. Many FNaF songs are their fault, and they've been a mainstay of FNaF music for many years. In FNaF 1, Foxy sings the Little Pirate song. As far as I know, it has no importance. We only know that it's Foxy, though, because of its being louder from his cam. I really hope someone makes a trap remix of it, though. That would go so hard. William Afton is a character introduced in FNaF 2. He's the killer of nearly every child in this game, or just straight up all of them, and he was initially referred to as the Purple Guy or the Killer until Sister Location when he was officially named. He not very tragically passed away in Pizza Simulator if you're based enough for UCN to be the end. And now we reach the surface of the iceberg. Jesus Christ, we're only at the surface. I'm pretty sure this just refers to whether the puppet is named the Marionette or the Puppet, and the answer is pretty obviously that the Puppet is easier to say and the Marionette is its official name. Based on one Google search, the toxic meter appears to be a removed feature from FNaF 2. The most popular theory was that it functioned to prevent you from using the mask too long, but that ended up being implemented in a far more interesting way with the Puppet and Foxy. In FNaF 1, Endo01 is always in the parts and services room. However, he can rarely start looking at the camera in a similar fashion to the stage animatronics, who can do the same thing. It's quite eerie. Chipper & Sons Lumber Company is a game released in 2013 before FNaF by Scott Cawthon. Essentially, you play as a little scrimblow named Chipper who runs a lumber company. The game was heavily criticized because it looked terrible. However, that criticism was the inspiration for Scott to make a game that ended up kind of flying under the radar. You might have never heard of it. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's. It seems cool. You should check it out. Back in the books entry, I mentioned a second author for the FNaF books, and this is who that is. She's made a myriad of other books, but she's mostly known for the FNaF ones. Troll games are games made by Scott Cawthon to fuck with us. Personally, the one I remember playing the most is Sister Location MA. That game was made specifically as a reskin of Sit and Survive, which is one of Scott's much older games. There are other troll games, but that's the only one I could name off of the top of my head in this scripted video. In Ultimate Custom Night, or UCN, you can set Golden Freddy to 20, and then death coin him, and you'll see a Fredbear jump scare. This jump scare has a unique sound, which is this. Using different filters, you can get different phrases from it, but I can't be asked to get the audio myself, so just watch this doco clip because I'm lazy. I had no idea what Dissect was, but apparently it was the first site where the full version of FNaF 2 was released, 12 days before it would be released on Steam. Although Dissect is not exactly a great site. Back in June of 2014, Scott Cawthon made a Kickstarter for FNaF 1, however he ended up canceling it on the same day it was launched with 0 backers, presumably because he wasn't hiring anyone and this wasn't his full-time job, and he had the time so there was no reason to crowdfund it, as it didn't need funding, period. Sparky the Dog was a FNaF 1 hoax in which a dog character was seen in the doorway of the parts and service room. The original creator of the hoax said it was basically just a few brushstrokes and some filters, but it's a remarkably good Photoshop for its simplicity. Pretty much as long as FNaF has been around, there's been a FNaF movie in discussion. Initially, the movie was being made with Warner Bros., but eventually they proved not very good to work with, and they settled with Blumhouse. Now, after over 5 years of scripts and planning, and Jason Blum teasing us, Blumhouse was a much bigger studio, and they've started filming, which, as of February 1st. In FNaF games 1 through 3, the phone guy serves to the lore and as a guide for the games. And he is also voiced by Scott Cawthon. However, later on, Hand Unit would be the guide and funny man in Pizza Sim and Sister Location, who is voiced by Andy Field. In FNaF 1, most likely as either a development or debug feature, hitting C, D, and numpad plus will automatically skip the night and finish it, meaning today you can load up FNaF 1 and beat 420 mode with 3 keystrokes. Although this bug/feature would be fixed in FNaF 2, and obviously 3 through UCN would not have it either. It's possible a different shortcut exists for skipping the nights in later games, but I don't know how, so it doesn't exist. So, as far as I know, the only reason for this debate is that Mangle has pink, which I guess makes her vaguely feminine, but also he's a version of Foxy who is male, but also she's extremely similar to Funtime Foxy, who is also of confused gender, and after the dust had settled and everyone agreed that the gender of a fictional robot in your computer doesn't matter, Scott made fun of this by alternating Mangle's pronouns every time he referred to him in Ultimate Custom Night. In FNaF 1, Freddy can be seen in the women's restroom. Most likely this was because it made for a better shot, but a lot of people took this to mean that the spirit in Freddy is female, but this would be disproved in FNaF 6 with the gravestones. And now we dip our toes into the water. In the private room, as was referred to in a previous entry, there's a keypad. If you type 1983, it shows a security cam footage of the FNaF 4 house. Well, a lot of people think that this is to show that the sister location is under the FNaF 4 house. I think it was just meant to prove that the Bite of 83 was the Bite of 83, and that William Afton was heavily involved in the location. I feel Scott wasn't so insane as to put a full public commercial establishment underground beneath a character's house. I believe this refers to how in Help Wanted, there's a small chance that you can get a plush trap jump scare when you open a prize. From Reddit posts, it seems to happen rarely, but it's more likely to happen twice in a row if you get it at all. That seems to be it.
My friend, you have met a terrible, terrible demise. But, you know, I don't feel too bad about it. After all, if it weren't from me, it would have just been from someone else, you know? I guess what I'm trying to say is life goes on. Well, for everyone else, life goes on, not for you. You're dead. But that's neither here nor there. It reminds me of one summer day in the park. I was having just a delightful picnic with my good friend Orville. And I said to him, Orville, I have a story. And he said to me, what's the significance of the story? And I said to him, Orville, not every story has to have significance, you know? Sometimes, sometimes a story is just a story. If you try to read into every little thing and find meaning in everything anyone says, you'll just drive yourself crazy. I had a friend do it once. Wasn't pretty. We talked about it for years. And not only that, but you'll likely end up believing something you shouldn't believe and thinking something you shouldn't think, or assuming something you shouldn't assume, you know? Sometimes, I said, a story is just a story. So just be quiet for 1 second of your life and eat your sandwich, okay? Of course, it was only then I realized I made sandwiches, and poor Orville was having such difficulty eating it. Elephants have those clumsy hands, you know? Actually, I suppose that's the problem. They don't have hands at all, do they? They're all feet. And I couldn't imagine someone asking me to eat a sandwich with my feet. Now, if I recall correctly, there was a bakery nearby. I said to him, Orville, let me go get you some rye bread. Now, I'm unsure if elephants enjoy rye bread, but I assure you that Orville does. Now, this was on a Tuesday, which was good because rye bread was always fresh on Tuesday. They made sourdough bread on Monday and threw it out Wednesday, or rather, they sold it at a discount for people wanting to feed the ducks, and then probably at the end of the day, finally, they threw it all out. I don't recall. I do remember a man who would bring his son to the bakery every Wednesday and then go feed the ducks. He would buy all of the sourdough bread. Of course, you're not supposed to feed the ducks sourdough bread at all. It swells up in their stomach, and then they all die. At least that's what I've heard. I never saw any ducks die myself, but I did notice a substantial decrease in the duck population over the course of a few years. I just never thought to stop the man and tell him that he was killing the ducks by feeding them sourdough bread. And if you want my opinion on the matter, and I told Orville this as well, if you want to feed ducks, or birds, or any kind for that matter, it's best to buy seed. I mean, when you think about it, breads of any sort don't occur in nature. They don't grow on trees or spring up from the bushes. I don't think birds know what to do with bread. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So I bought Orville some rye bread. What a fine day it was.
I'm pretty sure this refers to how you can see the puppet in the hallways and leaving its box in FNaF 2. However, it could also refer to the phantom puppet in FNaF 3, as all of them are hallucinations. I had no idea what this meant, but according to tcrf.net, which is probably not a Trojan website, in FNaF 2, when you put the mask down, only Toy Bonnie, not the rest of his body. And the bottom half of JJ's face is not visible. Also, I'm not liable if that website is a keylogger. Please don't sue me. In FNaF 3, there are two endings, right? There is the bad ending, which you get by playing the game normally, and the good ending, which is gotten by breaking several mini-games, clicking on near random areas in the camps, and typing a code into wall tiles like it's a fucking keypad. And that number you type in is 395248, which is gotten because it's in the wall of one of the mini-games between nights. I'm almost certain this is referring to the end of FNaF 3. The end screen in question is an article in a newspaper about how Fazbear Frights burnt down. However, by brightening the image in the article, you can see Springtrap in the background, hinting that he survived. In FNaF 2, there are paper pals in Party Room 4. However, there's a chance that one can be missing, but it can also appear in your office. Unlike JJ, Endo02, or Shadow Bonnie, he will stay there for the entire night until you either die or survive. I don't think there's any lore significance to the paper pals, but it's a funny story. In Pizzeria Sim, there is a 1 out of 10 chance that when you play Candy Cadet's game, he will tell you a story. In each of these stories, they result in 5 people or animals or things being turned into one animal or person or thing, or at least a parallel to that. It's pretty creepy considering the subject matter of the story, but it also doesn't really give us any lore hints, so I don't really care. Back in June of 2020, Funko teased security breach figurines, but it wasn't until after Funko teased them that they realized the characters they showed weren't announced yet. Scott did say that they would change the characters because of the leak, but he kinda just, fucking didn't. I had no idea what this meant when I researched it. Looking at Google, it seems to be referring to how, in the end sequence of Sister Location, Michael's silhouette looks vaguely like Rick Astley. That, or the iceberg rickrolled me. In FNaF 3 and FNaF 6, some images rarely show up when you start the game. In FNaF 3, they show William attempting to escape the Springtrap suit, and the FNaF 6 ones show the animatronics in the alley. This is also the only shot where we can see the puppet inside of Lefty. I'm not 100% sure what this means, but I'm pretty sure it's either referring to how in FNaF 2 there are unused frames of Toy Chica in the office, or how in UCN she just does appear in the office, but not in FNaF 2, at least in gameplay. In FNaF 1, Freddy's model has what appears to be a child's handprint on the left of his face. Back in pre-FNaF 2 days, this was the best evidence we had for the Bite of 87, so Freddy was believed to be the doer of the Bite of 87, at least until FNaF 2, when it was much more likely that it was Mangle. Also, it would be kind of weird if the game that takes place in 1997 didn't contain the Bite of 87, but the game that takes place in 1991 did. I never heard of Big Bug, but according to Google, they're a FNaF YouTuber, and they were the first to complete 420 mode in FNaF 1. Although I thought it was another person. Despite being so important, they seem to have flown under the radar, mainly because Markiplier and MatPat were the only people who did videos on FNaF who anyone cared about in 2014. Or really the only people in general who anyone cared about in 2014. Back in 2020, Scott Cawthon announced the Fazbear Fanverse initiative, in which some fan games would be given the same funding and legitimacy as official FNaF games, not to get them confused as being canon to the lore, because none of them are. Although initially the fanverse contained Emil Mako making Five Nights at Candy's, Ultra Knight making Grizzlies, Kane Carter making Pop Goes, and Nixon making The Joy of Creation. However, they did end up losing Ultra Knight because of the whole Peargate scandal, and Nixon wasn't to work on TJOC for a while for reasons I really don't know. Okay, so I'm recording right now. I totally forgot to say that we're on another level of the iceberg, so I guess L me. In FNaF 1, there are only 4 power bar slots you can fill. But if you have both doors shut, one door light on, plus the basic fan power, and open the security cam, you can see a 5th power bar for about 1 frame. It's so brief because using the camera immediately disables the door lights, but as far as I know, there's no way to keep 5 bars for more than a split second. I believe this is referring to in Help Wanted, how in a secret ending you can get a Vanny mask from a prize, although it could just be referring to Vanessa taking off her mask. But the Vanny mask is really the only continuation of the lore from Help Wanted to Security Breach, other than that William still exists. I also don't know shit about the new game, so maybe I'm not the best judge of this, though. I'm pretty sure this refers to how in FNaF 2, you see the puppet in one of the in-between night cutscene things. There's not too much consensus on what exactly this meme means, but it proves that at one point the puppet was in the FNaF 1 location. In an update, Scott Cawthon added a TV to FNaF 4, and on that TV it said Fredbear and Friends 1983. Now, normally this would mean nothing, but it's Scott Cawthon, so to fans, this confirmed that the bite in FNaF 4 was the bite of 83, and not the common belief at the time that it was the bite of 87. Throughout the entire franchise, the presence, number, and color of buttons on different characters has changed quite a lot. most commonly on the bear characters for some reason. Before FNaF 1 was released, there was a scrapped feature called Lives, represented by a little guy. I assume that the way it would work is that you had 3 lives on each night or something similar, and whether it's a thing where you can die 3 times and keep your time in the night, or you have 3 deaths each night, or you were starting to go back to the previous night, it's probably better it got left out of the final game because it wouldn't really make much sense. In Ultimate Custom Night, Old Man Consequences appears to be a pretty benign character in regular gameplay. He pops up with a fishing minigame, and if you can't catch his fish, he locks your camera for a few seconds. But if you set his AI level to 1 and turn off everyone else, and catch his fish, he'll activate a minigame with him and your character, who appears to be Golden Freddy at a lake. If you go up to him while he's fishing, he says, "Come and sit with me for a while. Leave the demon to his demons. Rest your own soul. There is nothing else." In this minigame, by rapidly hitting A and D when you're standing on the top of the lake, you can glitch into it and drown yourself. This and closing the game are the only way to leave it, which is kind of poetic. Both in that it's kind of making fun of you because you get so invested in a story and you care so much about it when you can just hit escape and it goes away, and also it is poetic in the story itself. Illusion discs were introduced in the first 3 novels, but the thing is, I hate them. Outside of the books, they were used as evidence of Gregory being a robot, the nightmares being real, and the fun times being nightmares. Okay, I forgot to explain what they are. They're little discs similar to the one found in Funtime Freddy in the Parts and Service section in Sister Location, but they cause light distortion and illusions to humans looking at animatronics and people wearing them. That's it, but oh my god, why would this exist? It's such a fucking awful feature. There are quite a lot of scrap models from throughout the FNaF series, so I'm not sure why this iceberg only highlights this and a few others, but in the Sister Location files, there are old models from beta versions of the game. I couldn't find official models, and the renders aren't public domain, so I can't show you them, but essentially they just lightened the secondary colors on all of the animatronics. In Ultimate Custom Night, some of the mediocre melodies have a faint whisper of a young girl echoing their death messages with a second or so of latency. It seems most likely that the voice is meant to be Golden Freddy, more specifically Cassidy, although it's never confirmed since it's the last game in the storyline, unless you're wrong. This fucking thing. I believe this refers to in FNaF 4, where after beating the first 7, you can play an 8th night where every character is on max AI level, and after 4 AM, all of the animatronics are dropped in favor of Nightmare, who is badass, and it's the only night without an end sequence. It's unlocked by typing 2020-2020-20 into the extras menu, or XYXYXYXY on Xbox. In FNaF 1, Golden Freddy is named Yellow Bear. In fact, no one has referred to him as Golden Freddy until Markiplier posted episode 2 of his FNaF series, titled, "Was that Golden Freddy?" Although, in FNaF 2, Golden Freddy would be officially referred to as so. In FNaF World, there's an unused attack called Toxic Song. It seems it would have worked similar to Toxic Bite, but without the bite part. It may have also been paired with another removed feature called the Poison Effect, working like poison from Toxic Bite, but it may have lasted longer or something similar. Another FNaF World removed feature, there's a chip that was removed called Curse Haunting. The main theory is that it would have given the Haunting attack to every enemy at the start of a battle, although there's no actual evidence for what it would do in the game files. On the Steam page, as well as the previously mentioned Kickstarter, Freddy Fazbear is referred to as Freddy Bear. Whether or not this is a remnant of a working name for Mr. Fazbear or a typo is unknown, although this is my favorite piece of FNaF trivia. Now we descend to level 5 of this iceberg. Not the actual iceberg, but the image. Whatever. As was brought up in the Chipper and Sons entry, the heavy criticism made against Chipper and Sons caused Scott to make FNaF 1. However, he was heavily demotivated by that and was about to give up on his hobby he had for over 20 years. To many's delight and my dismay, FNaF 1 succeeded and let him continue pursuing making games, and he had a hell of a last 7 years making them. In the party room in FNaF 1, Bonnie appears to be significantly shorter and smaller than Chica, despite the fact that in every other appearance they're roughly the same height and size. I'm not very confident about this, but I believe this refers to the extras menu, where you can see the blueprints of all of the Funtime animatronics, but the blueprints have some strange things about them. There's a claw and empty cavity in Baby's endoskeletons, and we're already aware of that. And Funtime Freddy has a similar cavity to Baby, but with a shape in it that appears to be a child. But it was never confirmed that it is one. This entry could also refer to the breaker room, where you can see a map of the building, including the private room, but that's significantly more boring than the animatronic blueprints. In sister location, Yendo can rarely appear when you activate the flash beacon in the Funtime Auditorium. He doesn't do anything and seemingly has no lore relevance, although he does appear to be an endoskeleton of Funtime Freddy. His main importance in sister location is in the Custom Night DLC, where he can briefly appear in your office, rapidly draining your oxygen. As far as I know, this just refers to how there are movies that are ripping off the FNaF movie, or attempting to replace it. I don't know if there's more to it than that, but that's what I found. In FNaF Help Wanted and Security Breach, there's a very lore-relevant minigame called Princess Quest. The reason I'm not specifying why it's lore-relevant is because I haven't played Security Breach, and I didn't play it in Help Wanted, and don't give a shit about the new games. I'm just, cutting it for time that I have plenty of. I assume this just refers to the fact that Scott didn't use tutorials or anything to learn game development, which is cool if a little hard to research. Not too much to this. To unlock the good ending in FNaF 3, on one of the nights you would need to collect 3 Withered-esque cupcakes to go to a specific minigame. As far as I know, the cupcakes aren't relevant to the lore, they're just there as a gimmick to get to the good ending, which is why barely anyone gets to the good ending. Don't know why this was so much lower than 395248, though. On September 30th, 2016, a walk-through amusement park themed around Five Nights at Freddy's in the Fright Dome in Las Vegas, Nevada, was open. It ended up being closed on Halloween for pretty unclear reasons, but it seems like there was some conflict on whether Fright Dome had the rights to use FNaF. In FNaF 3, Phantom Mangle's jump scares and model are missing from the extras menu. So is the Happiest Day minigame, although more concerningly, the jump scares and minigames are completely absent in the mobile port. So I have a feeling FNaF 3 isn't very good. Also, when I tried to look this up, I found degeneracy. In sister location, after the angsty teen bit, Hand Unit begins to say some garbled mess, and after a few times of talking, he goes back to normal. But the words he says in those voice lines are as the entry said. Also, apparently the letters of each word spell out phase if you mix them around a bit. I'm pretty sure this refers to a removed asset from FNaF 2, eerily titled Mike in all lowercase with a period. No one really knows what it would do. Also, the first thing I saw when I saw the image associated with Mike was a Frogget from Undertale, but that doesn't make sense because Undertale came out nearly a year after FNaF 2. And now we dive another level deep, and we aren't even halfway yet. Quit complaining, I will turn this car around. There weren't many Google results, but the most likely seems to be that this is referring to the sister location custom night box art, in which Bon Bon and Biddy Bab crawl through the vents, even though they don't anywhere in custom night or normal sister location. That seems to be it. Back in the FNaF 4 days, I believe briefly after the Halloween update was released, Nightmare JJ was a hoax made by GoMotion, who is still active in the FNaF community today. I had to go to page 2 of the Google results for this one, but what I found seems to be the only possibility that would make sense. The result that made sense was a tweet from the account FNAF_errors, although Twitter might have failed by the time I get this video up. The tweet showed a clip where, by flipping the camera while being jump scared by Bonnie or Chica, you can reset the jump scare, and it's possible to survive the night like that, although it would require incredible endurance to do that for several minutes. In Sister Location, there's a specific render of Ballora and the mini arenas in which they appear to spell out baby. I don't think there's much lore relevance to this, just a weird touch. In FNaF 2, there's an asset of the puppet on strings, which never appears in the game. Apparently it was intended to appear in the office, possibly in a similar way to Mangle hanging from the ceiling, although it makes more sense to have it as it is. In Sister Location, there's a small chance that after getting jump scared, a Lolbit mask will appear in place of the Ennard mask in the middle crawl space. And this is actually the only mention of Lolbit in Sister Location, excluding Custom Night, although Lolbit was introduced in FNaF World. In 2018, during the lead up to Ultimate Custom Night, Scott released teasers showing each animatronic and gradually changed the roster until the final one dropped. These are some previous rosters. In FNaF 3, the camera map vaguely resembles Scott Cawthon's character, who is named Anim Dude, and it also completely doesn't match if you look at the vents. This was initially expected to have a little bit of relevance or something when FNaF 3 was being teased, but it seems to just be a little nod to Scott's character. Back in the FNaF 2 days, Shadow BB was a hoax, and while Shadow BB does appear in the BB's Air Adventure minigame from FNaF 3, he is never featured in FNaF 2. This refers to the FNaF 1 trailer, in which Bonnie runs down the West Hall in a similar way to Foxy running down the hall in the full game. Foxy also doesn't appear in the trailer, which suggests that Bonnie may have played the role of Foxy during development. In Mangle's teaser for FNaF 2, the model for the original Foxy is FNaF 1 Foxy, not Withered Foxy, which is most likely because the Withereds hadn't been modeled yet, and Withered Foxy isn't too much more withered than original Foxy. In FNaF 1, there's a specific distorted, reversed, and otherwise destroyed audio clip that's played when the animatronics glitch, and when the phone guy goes Freggy mode after being jump scared in Night 4. The original audio clip is an excerpt from the book Autobiography of a Yogi, which is a book I'm not going to read. Well, believe it or not, Beta Nightmare Fredbear in Help Wanted trailer referred to how there was a beta version of Nightmare Fredbear in the trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted, although I literally cannot tell the difference. And now we reach level 7 and are over halfway. You can hold it. Fine, we'll stop at McDonald's. In the survival logbook, Scrap Chica, officially Logbook Chica, appears as a minor character towards the end, although they would appear again as a more major antagonist in the Gumdrop Angel, although I haven't read either of those and probably never will. In Pizzeria Simulator, there are two clowns that can be purchased, the Lemonade Clown and the Fruit Punch Clown. They're not very good for money unless you get the jackpot, which gets you $1,000, although the Lemonade Clown gives less for some reason. And that's not important, though. There is a small chance that when you complete the minigame, the Lemonade Clown will say this.
Tell anyone about this and I cut your throat.
There appears to be no lore to this, it's just meant to be weird and creepy and catch you off guard. Rockzone1987 was a FNaF YouTuber who primarily posted reversed versions of audio from various Five Nights at Freddy's media, including like fan-made stuff, which is kinda weird. I say was, as they haven't posted any videos since September of 2020, although maybe when a new FNaF trailer drops, they'll come back. Epic Surfing Vids was a channel that posted FNaF meme and edit compilations and whatever this is. Once again, I say was because they haven't posted since January of 2017. As part of Sister Location's promotion and trailers, Scott posted this teaser. Obviously, Sister Location was not cancelled because people discovered a newspaper clipping in the background, though it was visible when brightened because they never did that before. Essentially, the clipping describes how the game isn't cancelled, but in fact the grand opening of Circus Baby's Pizza World was cancelled due to gas leaks. In Pizzeria Simulator and FNaF 2, Toy Bonnie and Rockstar Bonnie don't have their iconic V-shaped guitars if you play on non-PC versions of the game. Most likely because the guitar company Gibson had copyright on that design of guitar, which is stupid, but that's not what I'm here to talk about, and had sued Dean Guitars for using a very similar design to them, so Scott removed the guitars where possible to prevent a lawsuit from landing in his hands. More removed content here, but in FFPS there was an asset for blueprints of Molten Freddy, which confirms that he is an amalgamation of Ballora, Funtime Foxy, and Funtime Freddy, which I believe was only speculation before that, but maybe I'm forgetting something. Anyway, it also says that Molten Freddy has the most remnant and is therefore more important to the mysterious Paragraph 4. Originally, in FNaF 1, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were placeholder names. Additionally, Fredbear was a placeholder name for Freddy during development, but as Scott Cawthon realized the game was near finished, the placeholders have stuck. And it's possible he had already made the phone guy recording, so it would have been too much effort to redo them or something. The McDonald's was closed. I guess you'll have to hold it. There are really two possibilities that this could be. Either the newspaper in the survival logbook, or at the end of FNaF 3. The FNaF 3 newspapers read, "Looking back on many of my old games, I found that there is almost always a broken down robot in them. I'm not sure why this seems to be such a recurring theme in my games, but it's obvious that it's something haunting me." Before I began work on FNaF, I had to change what game to make out of 3 potential games, knowing it might be my last try before having to start a new career. I was choosing between a sequel to The Desolate Hope, a remake of my first game, Ligeri of Plaz, and a new idea about animatronics and security cameras. While working on the first game, I started crowdfunding a campaign for it. I raised exactly $0. Fun fact, the name Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy were just nicknames while I worked on the characters. I was planning on giving them official names later, but had grown very fond of them by the time the game was done. In the original game, Freddy was originally supposed to move around the diner, and was only meant to get you if your time ran out. This was changed before the release. In real life, I try to have waking nightmares, meaning that I walk in my sleep, etc. One night, I dreamt that Bonnie was in the hall outside of my door as I jumped out of bed and rushed to hold the door shut. I discovered that the door was locked, and it filled me with dread. In FNaF 1, when the doors won't work, it means something is already in your office. As when I felt that door was locked, I felt like Bonnie was in my bedroom and about to get me. Thankfully, I woke up, meaning this whole thing could be a dream. I actually modeled the Foxy character on my laptop while riding on a 14-hour drive to visit my in-laws over the summer of 2014. It's very difficult to model a 3D character on a bumpy ride. Maybe that's why Foxy looks so torn up. While we were visiting, my kids got to experience Foxy's jump scare for the first time. And the logbook newspaper reads, blah 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 blah, this ad has nothing to do with anything relevant to the game, blah 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 blah, the chances are you won't make it past night 3, blah blah, yakety yakety blah blah. This probably isn't the best choice of a summer job, since you most likely won't survive the week. I'll recommend being a cashier, back boy, or work in a warehouse. Those are all very respectable jobs, and you probably won't get killed doing them. Well, you might, but it would be unlikely, blah blah. In Sister Location, on rare occasions, Biddy Babs and Mini Renas can appear in random locations, including in your popcorn during the in-between night cutscenes. Back in 2015, when Sister Location was being teased, Scott announced that Sister Location was officially too hot for Steam, and that it would have to be cleaned up before a Steam release. However, he released the original one on Game Jolt. The gameplay was shocking and violent, and I really can't show it to you. Nah, it was a troll game. I already talked about it a bit, but yeah, not actually a FNaF game. Oh, and the MA stands for Massachusetts. In 2016, Sally Corporation announced a theme park ride, and according to this Reddit thread, the ride was never technically cancelled, but the thing is, amusement park rides typically buy rides designed and created by other companies, and the FNaF ride never sold, and it's possible Sally Corporation silently scrapped it because no one bought it. In FNaF 2, there's an unused frame that was meant to appear as the last frame of the puppet's jump scare animation, but it was scrapped. You know how I said Dako was the second person ever to beat 5020? Remory is the first. Here's that clip.
Oh my god! Oh! Oh! Holy shit! Oh my god! Oh my god! No! No! Holy shit! Oh my god!
FNaF 2 first began being teased back in September 2014, only a month after FNaF 1 released, and in that teaser it shows 2015, suggesting that the game would release that year. But instead it ended up getting released over a month and a half before New Year's, on November 11th, and we would end up getting FNaF 3, FNaF 4, FNaF World, and a book in 2015, so we probably had enough for 2015. In the early days of FNaF, there were many hoaxes about real Freddy Fazbear Pizza locations. Some people actually believe them because I guess Google didn't exist yet, although these hoaxes would be sort of made real with the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Ghost Kitchen. In FNaF 3, these Freddy posters can occasionally be replaced with posters of Springtrap, although it doesn't seem to mean much for the lore. It's just a neat touch. After being teased since April 2015, some names and synopses of scrapped screenplays for the FNaF movie were released, and one of which was Plushie's Take Manhattan, which was either a parody of Friday the 13th or The Muppets, and apparently Scott absolutely hated it. I'm pretty sure this refers to the FNaF World trailer, in which for some reason Toy Chica's bib is flipped, probably accident. I don't know if there's anything else to this entry, but it did say bibs plural, but this is all I could find. Alright, we're driving into Massachusetts now, so we might not make it out. In FNaF AR, there's a specific skin pack called Black Ice Frost Bear, which has specific lore icons on its icon, and they're the wrong ones or something. I don't really know. AR is bad. In FNaF World, there's a cupcake object, and in its final animation, it would bounce up and down once when loaded in, and then it would stay relatively still. However, there is an unused animation in which it would just keep bouncing for as long as it was on screen. In FNaF 1, Foxy is very clearly a fox, but originally he was planned to be either a wolf or a beaver. I suspect that Scott changed from beaver because he didn't think a beaver would be scary, although if that's true, I'd say the same thing for a rabbit and a chicken. And then from a wolf to a fox because I guess he was hotter as a fox or something, I don't know. In FNaF World, there is a game called Chica's Magic Rainbow, which, on top of being fucking impossible, features an incredibly infuriating narrator and mascot. And at one point, she goes as far as to say the vile, vulgar, bad word of piss. Yeah, I don't know why people cared so much about this. Oh, wait, this game's audience is like 16, and the game is like 8 years old. That makes sense. In FNaF 2, a dark purpley black version of Freddy appears in the parts in the service room, nicknamed Shadow Freddy, who then appeared again in FNaF 3. However, in FNaF 3, he appeared without glowing eyes, and when brightened shows that he's much more closer to the Phantoms in FNaF 3 in color. In FNAF's sister location, this is the death screen. However, in the files, there's an unused death screen of Circus Baby tinted red with no pigtails. There's also an unused static asset that may possibly have been intended for a game over screen, but that's genuinely the most boring possible piece of unused content. In FNAF Help Wanted, there is a glitch or Easter egg in which you can find a heavily glitched version of Bonnie in Funtime Foxy's hard level by clipping into an endoskeleton. It's not agreed 100% that this is or is not a glitch, but I personally think it isn't. In Pizzeria Simulator, Molten Freddy's eye appears to change color. In his death screen in FFPS and in Ultimate Custom Night, his eye is yellow. In the salvage sections, it's orange, and in the office and during his jump scare, the eye is red. It's a weird inconsistency, assuming it's actually not some hidden lore, which I guess could be interesting. On April 26th, 2018, 2 months before it would officially release, part of the Fourth Closet, the last of the original FNAF books, was leaked, I believe by Amazon, which marks 2 times that major FNAF content was leaked by massive companies. The impact of this leak was actually relatively small. I didn't even know about it until now. In some early FNAF 4 teasers, Nightmare Foxy is shown with this long metal tongue, which ended up being removed during development. And while many people assumed this was because the fanbase would make some unsavory content with it, Scott has confirmed that this was just because it would have been too hard to animate for a jump scare. I'm pretty sure this refers to the background soundtrack for FNAF 4, which is a distorted version of the FNAF 1 Night 1 phone call. Google also wasn't much help for this one. I just talked about the Night 4 phone call in FNAF 1. Alright, so once again, I completely forgot that we're on another level of the iceberg. I can't believe I did this twice in one video. In FNAF World, there is a boss named Brow Boy, who just appears to be the 700th Balloon Boy recolor. But during development, Brow Boy was intended as a generic enemy. That's about it. In Gravity Falls, there's an animatronic pizza restaurant, which has a weird amount in common with FNAF. And as Alex Hirsch confirmed, it was written before FNAF came out at all. In Sister Location, there's an unused audio clip in which the trigger voice says this.
Glass pressure trigger. Please do not push against the glass.
I have no idea what this feature would have been included with, but it's some interesting deleted content, although there's very little to go with it. In FNAF 3's files, there's a button to seal vents rather than double-clicking the cams to seal, as you would in the final release of the game. By getting the button to function and appear in-game, it also shows that it's significantly faster to seal using the button than to seal with a double-click. Weird. In FNAF 2, certain people speculated that the jump scare scream was meant to say freedom, which in theory could be true, but if you're trying to hear a specific phrase out of noise, you can almost always hear it. For example, listen to the FNaF 2 jump scare and try to hear it saying piss pants. Probably kind of heard it, right? No? Well, here's something else. All of the screams in FNaF have different sources. The FNaF 1 scream is from a movie called Inseminoids, the FNaF 3 scream is from My Little Pony, and the FNaF 2 scream is from Saw 2, where someone screaming freedom could possibly, but probably wouldn't really make sense, but the sound is non-diegetic. Non-diegetic being a term which refers to a sound in a movie or TV show, or in this case a video game, that the characters can't hear, but the viewer/player/listener can. Which seriously makes me doubt that it's meant to be someone screaming freedom. Prior to the release of FNaF Help Wanted's DLC Curse of Dreadbear, Scott and Steelwool made a alpha version of the DLC, which was titled The Rise of Frankenfreddy, which was an incomplete version of Curse of Dreadbear. It was discovered by NR Superstar on Reddit, who tried to download Curse of Dreadbear, and instead of downloading the intended DLC, downloaded the alpha, followed by an extremely large update, which was most likely trying to replace it with the full release. So NR canceled the update and played the alpha, and it was not far from the full release. There were a lot more bugs in the game. For example, the game mode Spooky Mansion, which is mechanically almost the exact same, but with way more bugs. There are also many placeholders and such, like my favorite game mode, Office Placeholder Name. When Sister Location was being teased, there was text in the source code which read, Chica's Party World, without the apostrophe or vowels. Some people thought this was meant to be where the game would take place, but for now it seems more so as an end Scott tried to leave open for a potential sequel that never came. In FNaF 2's trailer, there's a sequence where a crowd of children sing London Bridges Falling Down. Although reversed, it sounds like this. It sounds like it's saying Mike kill all. Mike referring to Mike Schmidt, who is the player in FNaF 1, and probably Michael Afton, who is definitely not the killer. And it was probably not even intended to sound like that. It was just a creepy song that fit the scene, so Scott used it. On Withered Bonnie's head, his bow tie clips through, and at certain angles, mostly in custom renders using original models, you can see a bit of red from the bow tie on his jaw. Interestingly, though, this isn't present on the original Bonnie model. There's not much info on the first page of Google for this one, but essentially Freddles are Nightmare Freddy's little guys, and Burnt Freddles were a version of Freddles in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC which were removed but left in the files. Apparently they were meant to be in the Build-A-Mangle level in Spooky Mansion on hard mode. What exactly they would do is unclear, but they were still left there. In 2017, for the 3-year anniversary of FNaF, Scott posted images of models as a little treat for the anniversary. However, in this render of the parts and service room, there was this, which was apparently something from FFPS. Which, even knowing it's a teaser and having played the game it's teasing, I can't tell what it is. Alright, kids, we made it through Massachusetts, but now we're in Connecticut, and then we're going to New Jersey. In FNaF 4, Nightmare Foxy appears in the closet, but he doesn't start there. He has to get into the closet first. However, you can summon him into the closet by going to the bed and honking the Freddy plush's nose 20 times. Presumably, this was similar to CD Plus in that it was most likely a dev feature that got left in the full game. Although, in this case, it's much less useful for beating the game. In FNaF 1, there was a typo in the First Night newspaper, stating that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is a family pizzeria searching for a security guard, and this has since been patched out for years, but it's visible in some early Let's Plays such as Markiplier's. By the way, I was previously just gonna leave some of the entries where I couldn't find enough info on them blank, and just say, I couldn't figure out what this means, I'm sorry. But this was the one that broke the camel's back, and I had to message the guy that made the iceberg. And he did end up helping out with some of the other entries. In FNaF Help Wanted, there was an unused file of Springtrap, but recolored to silver. And the file for the name was Glitch Trap. However, there's some debate on whether or not this is actually a design for Glitch Trap or just a mislabeled file. Personally, I think it's a beta design for Glitch Trap, but it's more of a placeholder than a early design, and it was just to test animations and whatnot. In 2015, while the Silver Eyes was being teased, we received this teaser, which is quite similar to the cover of the Silver Eyes, but with that title, The Untold Story, which was a placeholder, and I'm incredibly glad that wasn't the title that they went with, because it is so incredibly basic. In 2019, while Help Wanted was being teased, this was posted on Scott Games, a relatively innocent teaser showing off Help Wanted's box art. However, in the teaser, somehow, whoever made it confused official models for Fun 9 Foxy and Springtrap for fan-made models, and Scott and Steelwool had to apologize for that. In FNaF 4, Nightmare is undoubtedly the most mysterious character. Based on his name and general aura, he appears to be a manifestation of death, which is also why he's a man. And for some reason, his head is transparent, and you can see his brain. Okay, so I wasn't aware of this until right now, editing this at 1:55 a.m., but apparently Nightmare does not have a brain. In fact, that is just his endoskeleton. Also, I don't know why I said his head was transparent. His entire body is transparent. But, yeah, he does not have a brain. It's just the endoskeleton. In FNaF World, there exists this turtle in the files for Dee Dee's Fishing Hole. However, this turtle also appears in an earlier Scott Cawthon game titled Slumberfish. The turtle was presumably going to be either a generic fish or would have another mechanic to go with it, and we'll never know. In FFPS, there are 6 different endings, one of which is the Insanity ending, which happens when you purchase the Egg Baby Data Archive from the Rare Finds auction for $6,000 and gain access to information you aren't supposed to know. So you're deemed insane and you lose your restaurant. And I didn't think it was possible at first, but apparently it is possible to unlock this ending on night 1. Essentially, you need to buy trash in the gang so you can get bonuses, and unlock Smiles and Servos where you can buy Midnight Motorist. And by winning Midnight Motorist, you can buy Lemonade Clown, which when won gives $1,000. And with that money, you can buy Mediocre Melodies, which give a set bonus of $10,000, from which you can unlock the Rare Finds auction, which will let you buy Egg Baby. DJ Sturf seems to be the only person who has done this successfully. In FNaF 3, Phantom Foxy appears in your office and is normally meant to jump scare you if you shift your camera position past him. But sometimes he just gets stuck there. This is almost definitely not intentional, and this still hasn't been patched. But I believe this has happened to me once, but I was not recording, unfortunately. In FNaF AR, there were a number of microtransactions, one of which was a VIP subscription service that was cancelled. Apparently it was going to cost $5 a month and give you access to some lures and in-game stuff. I don't know, I've barely played AR. In FNaF 4, after beating the hardest difficulty, you'd be presented with this box. This box is possibly the most debated theory in all of FNaF, and the answer as to its contents have possibly changed about a dozen times, and this box has still not been opened. However, in the files of FNaF World, there is an asset of an open version of this box, and I'd argue this is the most well-known piece of removed content in all of FNaF. And off the top of my head, I couldn't name a more notable piece of removed content from any game. I don't know if this was left in as an accident, or if this was actually just Scott leaving some theory fodder, but it's interesting. In the hometown portion of Deltarune, there's an NPC named Purple Guy, who was apparently similar to the Purple Guy in FNaF, although the only real resemblance I found from reading the wiki was that they both work for a pizza restaurant and are purple, which could easily be a coincidence. Alright kids, we're in Newark, New Jersey, and the car broke down. We're gonna book a hotel and pick it up from the mechanics tomorrow. In FNaF 3, in the Chica's Party minigame, you can enter a specific area which contains 5 crying cupcake sprites, one of which will chase you but doesn't do anything. The cupcakes are most likely meant to represent the victims of William, and Chica is meant to represent William, and the moving cupcake being Cassidy, who is the soul who possesses Golden Freddy. In the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, there's an unused animation of Grim Foxy howling, and it's also seen in some pre-release images. It would most likely have been used when you're spotted by him, but it was removed because it would give the player too much time to get away. Much like the last one, there are pre-release images for the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, in which Dreadbear is seen in a hallway. There is a game mode which is in this hallway, but Dreadbear never appears in it, although it most likely would have gone into hard mode. As I mentioned previously, the FNaF 1 jumpscare sound effect is from a movie titled Inseminoids, and it's from this scene where a woman gives birth to an alien. In 2016, after the release of FNaF World, Scott Cawthon continued to post FNaF World teasers onto scottgames.com. One of which was this teaser which When Brighton showed a hanged male, which is kind of depressing to me. And most people think this is meant to be Scott announcing that FNaF World was officially dead, and afterwards there would not be any FNaF World updates or teasers, and so far that's proved true. In Help Wanted, there are files for heavily fucked versions of the original plushies. It's not really known what they're meant to be, although they look pretty goofy and that's silly. I initially had no idea what this meant, and the only result that jumped out to me was a Reddit post which read, "Does anyone know about the scanning for glitches thing in FNaF VR Halloween DLC? I know that they say scanning for glitches, wow, and that everything is glitchy, but is this the only thing that happens, or is there a random chance to maybe get glitches found or something other?" Afterwards, I found this video from CIPHVR, which showcased this.
Activables are lit up. Scans. Wait. I can see Dreadbear. No, don't. Oh, what? What was that?
So I don't know what that was, but it's definitely something. It might have some lore relevance, but I doubt it. Before the first line of plushies were released, these were prototypes made by Funko, and they are absolutely vile. Look at this shit. In a minigame in FNaF 3, there's a child that's missing in Stage 1. And it's generally agreed that this was intentional, and that it's meant to have some lore relevance, although there doesn't seem to be a real consensus on what it means. In the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, there's a game mode called Trick or Treat, and in Trick or Treat, there are a few different characters who can jump scare you, one of which is Balloon Boy, but probably because Balloon Boy is not very scary. His jump scare is Nightmare BB, and the jump scare sound effect is that of Plushtrap and Nightmare BB in FNaF 4 and FNaF 4's Halloween DLC. On several occasions, Scott has made references, or in other ways acknowledged Markiplier's content, such as Bonbon's name, the fact that Markiplier said himself that a VR game would be good before Help Wanted came out, and this teaser of Nightmarian, which has the file name don'twakethebaby.jpg, which is most likely a reference to Markiplier's FNaF 2 playthrough, although, I'll be honest, Scott watching Markiplier doesn't really surprise me. In FNaF 2, by holding the flashlight and pulling down the mask, you can have them both on, which is probably not intended, as it means you only have to wind the music box every now and again. although you will drain your battery very fast. It's possible that this was so Scott could post this teaser, in which both the mask and flashlight are on, and Scott forgot to remove it when the game was released. Yeah, that family I was talking about, you know, the one that I was the driver of, they got murdered in Newark, New Jersey. They deserved it. They went to Newark, New Jersey. In FNaF 3, it seems very divisive on whether it's possible to get a good ending in FNaF 3 on Switch. In that some people have said that there's an input that wasn't adapted for Switch in one of the minigames that's required to get the good ending, but others say it exists, although I personally can't confirm, as I've never played FNaF 3 for the Switch. In very rare cases, it is possible to encounter Golden Freddy on Night 2 of FNaF 2. Normally, he only appears on Night 6 and 7, and there's only one video I'm aware of where this happens, and it's by a French YouTuber named Squeezy, who has 17 million subscribers, and that is too many. In Sister Location, by entering the Ballora Gallery, holding 1 and 0 for about a minute and a half, it will send you to a blue screen. On that blue screen, you can press 1 and it will show you a bunch of numbers. As for what this means, no one really knows. It's possible that it's a testing feature, but it's also ported to console versions, which makes me doubt that. Also, the only way to leave that screen, I believe, is to leave the game. In 1993, there was a shooting at a Chuck E. Cheese in Aurora, Colorado, in which 4 people were killed and 1 was injured. The injured person was shot in the jaw and played dead to survive. And many people have drawn parallels to this and the fucking FNaF war. At least in FNaF 1. One of these people being MatPat in his first ever FNaF theory. In that 4 people were killed, the survivor representing Golden Freddy, and the phone guy advises playing dead. Not to mention the time frame matching up and the whole Chuck E. Cheese thing. At several different points in Sister Location, you can hear a heavily distorted and slowed down version of Circus Baby saying the numbers 1, 5, 7, and 8 in differing orders. If this has any lore relevance is pretty unknown. In 2016, before releasing proper Funko Pops, Funko had these prototypes for FNaF figures, which were luckily never released because every one of them except the Orange Springtrap is ugly, and Orange Springtrap doesn't make sense. In The Silver Eyes, Jason is one of the protagonists. However, despite a lot of people really liking him, he was written off as having left town between the Twisted Ones and the Fourth Closet. I don't know, maybe we'll get a spin-off book series about Jason and his wild and wacky misadventures, or something, or not. That would also be fine. On May 21st, 2016, Scott Cawthon uploaded a YouTube video titled Sister Location Trailer 1, implying that there would be a second, but as far as I'm aware, there never was. While there are many people on YouTube posting fan-made trailers, or even trying to pass off their fan-made trailers as official, there doesn't appear to be any official second Sister Location trailer. Underneath the map of the Happiest Day minigame, there's a segment of BB's Air Adventure. You can only find this by going into the files and looking at the full map, or by finding a way to glitch through the map. In a GT live stream, MatPat invited Kellen Goff onto the stream, who is known to the FNaF community as being the voice of Funtime Freddy. And apparently, before he had the lines down, there were lines which didn't make it in which Freddy Fazbear spoke in a German accent, which is fucking hilarious. In the comments for the trailer for FNaF 1, a user named Wallmeat left a comment that referred to a last video from Scott, in which Freddy had red pinprick eyes. And those eyes appear in a screenshot on the FNaF Steam page before release. And going into YouTube archives, it reveals 4 videos, one of which is titled 5 Nights, which is the video that's generally believed to be the original trailer. However, this doesn't lead anywhere. The URL is dead. Assuming Scott Cawthon has replaced his PC in the last 8.5 years, this video is probably lost media. In FNaF World, there was a removed level called Ice Cave, which doesn't exist in the files, and the only evidence we have of it existing is that the soundtrack for that level was still included in the full soundtrack for FNaF World on distribution services and such. In FNaF 2, much like her beak, Chica's eyes go away once she leaves the stage. I don't really know what it means, but it's creepy. And with that, that's the end of the video. Almost. I want to talk about how long this video took, why it took so long, and what I'm going to be doing going forward. This video took about 5 months from concept to upload. Now, that could have shrunk down to from 5 months to maybe 1, if it weren't for the fact that I am a human who has responsibilities, and also that I don't want to work on the same video nonstop for a month, and that's why it's taken so long, at least partially. Since the concept for this video came, I have made 12 videos. Some higher effort than others, but even the lower effort ones still took a lot of time. I had the idea right at the end of September, so I finished most of the videos I was working on, and right after I posted 1,000 days and the 3 videos that came with that, I decided that I was going to go hard on the series. But I still had 3 lives, which I planned on posting weekly, and then I didn't post anything for 26 days, partially because I was sad, but mostly because I was working on this video. And then I got a bit over half of it done. But also, towards the end of that, I was working on the 3 videos I posted back-to-back, and after going hard on it for 3 weeks, I posted the Battles 100 Games video. And after that, I posted the Borderlands 2 video, and after that, I actually started working on the FNaF Iceberg again. And after starting HCMC Season 3, I went hard on this video until now. As for what's coming next, I don't really know. I have some ideas on the back burner, but as for the moment, I'm only really working on Hardcore Season 3, which will be coming out soon. I do have 2,000 days coming someday, but for now, I want to share some of those back burner ideas, and you guys can tell me what you'd like the most. A video on the art of Call of Juarez Gunslinger, a retrospective on Fallout New Vegas, a retrospective on Left 4 Dead 2, or a retrospective on Terraria, and a massive video essay and Let's Play series on Dark Souls 3. You can let me know which your favorite would be, although all of these are probably coming someday. It's more so about which one is going to be coming sooner. Alright, if you watched this behemoth all the way through, then feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Hell, join my Discord, support me on Patreon if you want and are able to. Goodbye now.